everyone. I am joined by Tim Coxwell with the Leon County Sheriff's Office. Tim is also one of our speakers here at GFX, and your team has also won a few awards as well as your individual awards, so congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. It's certainly an honor to be recognized by my peers in the Hall of Fame, and also with the work that our organization has done, ranking 4th overall and number 1 for mid-sized fleets. It's quite an honor. I can't wait to get back to the office and celebrate with our team and kind of give the sheriff a little bit of grief and razz him a little bit about the hard work that we've done and the accomplishments that we've achieved. So very grateful for GFX for the opportunity they provide us. The Leading Fleets competition validates the work that we perform and gives us a venue to establish credibility within our organization and gives us a way to display the pride we have in the work that we perform. So very grateful to GFX for the recognition and for the venue and opportunity that you guys provide.
Well, I would say this recognition it doesn't come lightly. I'll just put it that way. I know I've talked to you multiple times before. We've sat down for articles and other videos, and I know that you've been doing a ton of work. I mean, we were just talking right before this video started about how you're saying you're getting notifications and you're getting calls,
yeah.
And just because you come to GFX, the work doesn't stop.
Right.
It's not a vacation. It's still, you're learning. You're doing a session later on, and there's a lot going on, a lot of moving parts. So, I'd love for you to tell our viewers a little bit about, what you've been working on, some of the projects that have been impactful to you, and where your focus has been recently.
So over the last really, I guess maybe 8 years, we've been working on improving our greenhouse gas emissions and lowering our cost per mile, and we really focused on the proper vehicle selection for the utilization, and so that's a project that typically you might think of as a year-to-year decision as to what type of vehicle to put in your fleet. But without any mandates and without any direction, we just decided that we were going to focus on cost per mile. And so our fleet replacement plan and the vehicles that we've selected have been based off of those principles. Mm-hmm. And so that's a long-term project. A short-term project, the sheriff entrusted me with overseeing the information technology department effective March 10th. And so for the last 90 days, in addition to my fleet responsibilities, I've been helping manage IT's workload. So it's a challenge, a little bit different level of focus than I've had to deal with in the past. So fortunately, in the great state of Florida, we have Sean Williams, who's past flag for president, and he went through a similar experience at Collier County Sheriff's Office, and he was able to provide me some guidance as to what to expect. So both he and Josh Leno at Pasco County Sheriff's Office had been tasked with a similar experience, and so I had some peers to draw on their experiences and provide some guidance. So we found out yesterday that we've gotten our IT director hired. He goes before the sheriff here in the next week or so. So we're looking forward to putting that short-term project to rest. Long-term for us continues to be establishing sufficient capital outlay funding. It is a battle in Florida. Florida has approved through the legislature a property tax reduction and eventually elimination ballot measure. And so the citizens, when they go to vote for governor this fall, will be able to vote as to whether or not they want to eliminate property taxes. Property taxes are our source of income for our governments in the state of Florida. So we're expecting, should this become law, we are expecting somewhere around a $90 million lapse or shortage in funding. And so we're going to have to shift our priorities to make sure we still provide what's most important to our citizens, we provide those services, at an acceptable level. So there's some challenges coming up. And so all departments, all divisions, all sections, all units, we're all scrambling to secure our future funding. And those discussions are probably the most difficult that we've had in my 13 years there. So normally it's just kind of a handshake agreement. Hey, we need $100 million. We'll have 3 or 4 discussions about it. We'll put out our business case, and it goes before the board and it's approved. Now we're competing with other constitutional officers for funding, with the clerk of courts and the board of county commissioners and all of their operations, in addition to what we do. So challenging times when it comes to funding, and that's really, if you surveyed all of your Florida attendees today, that is the number one thing they're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge, and that's a lot to be dealing with, right now. A lot of different focal points with it all. And again, it's multiple fleets that are dealing with this.
Yes.
So not just, your region. But, one thing too, being here at GFX, we found out there's a lot of new timers here. So a lot of new people coming into the fleet. You are a 2026 Hall of Fame inductee, which is very cool. But again, that comes with experience. So I would love for you to just tell us, especially our new timers and people who are new to the fleet industry within the government space, what's some advice that you would give them? Just looking back on your time, and what should they know about fleet in general?
Well, I'll tell you, when I was brought in to run the fleet at the Leon County Sheriff's Office, the focus was on establishing the operation similar to the way our retail chains had operated, where I came from. And so they wanted a retail mentality in the way we provided service to our deputies and our drivers. And so I started out down that road of organizing our operation based off of the driver experience. Then as we went from first budget of 2014 through to 2015, 2016, 2017, we had no capital outlay and we hadn't purchased any vehicles. And so I knew how to run a fleet garage. I knew how to run a retail automotive operation. But what I didn't know how to do was to secure funding for life cycle replacement planning and be able to get the right amount of cars when we needed them. And so through our FLAGFA group, I met Gary McLean, who's also a Hall of Famer, Will Massey, Tim Calhoun, also Hall of Famers, Darrell Greenlee. And so these individuals had a lifetime of experience and knew exactly what I needed to do to help establish a capital outlay on a consistent basis. And so that capital funding, as I learned what I needed to do, how I needed to communicate within my organization, the funding came. And so without having those mentors, without having a Will Massey to bounce things off of, without having a Sean Williams or a Gary McLean, there's almost no situation I could have run into that they hadn't already experienced. And so they provided a lot of guidance, a lot of help. I could ask them anything, anytime, and knew that I was on the right track. So they also got me involved in NAFA with CAFM, and I earned my certification. And then I started reading Government Fleet Magazine. And when I started reading Government Fleet Magazine, I started seeing Kevin Schlangen being recognized as the #1 fleet, and I didn't even realize that there was such a thing. It just had never entered into my mind that there was such a thing. And so I started following what they were doing, and I started noticing, hey, David Rentschler's got this CPFP behind his name, and so does Peter Scarfatti and John Hunt and Kevin Schlangen, and I'm trying to think of some of the others. And so I pursued, after completing the NAFA program, I pursued the APWA program with the CPFP, and then I did the CEM. And the reason I did that was because I would look at the articles that were being put out, and I would see that these folks are achieving things at a high level, and maybe it comes from the training that they've received. And so I wanted to be recognized at the same level that they were recognized. And it helped me establish credibility within my organization. And so we've gone from a capital outlay of less than $4,000 to routinely spending more than $2 and $3 million each year. And I wouldn't have known how to do that part of the business if it wasn't for that mentorship. So certification matters because it gives you the confidence to stand behind the information that you put out in front of your organization. And when you get challenged from those situations where maybe the budget's being contested a little bit and they want to know, what do you need, when do you need it, why do you need it, you have the credentials that are the equivalent of an accountant having a CPA, and it gives credibility to what you write, and it gives you the confidence that you're putting the right information out in the right format, and eventually that confidence allows you to close those sales. They're sales transactions, and you learn to have confidence in your craft. And that's really changed the way that I communicate internally with my organization.
Well, those are some great words of advice, again, coming from your experience. I'd love to wrap it up. Just tell me, it can be short, long, however you want, but what do you love about the fleet community? What keeps you here?
Well, when I get asked by the sheriff, every once in a while they'll say, Tim, I'm always worried about losing you to a bigger organization that can pay you more money. And I tell them, I'm like, Sheriff, I probably should never tell you this, but I'm not here for the money. You have to love what you do. You have to love who you do it with, and you have to love who you do it for. And so for me, what makes Fleet fun is we solve problems. And our problems that we solve, they're tangible. We can see them. They're not an idea that you put out that you have to wait for it to, turn into action several years later. We actually solve problems in the here and now. We do have long-term strategic planning that we have to participate in and guide and direct and initiate sometimes. But what makes Fleet fun are the people. And I love getting an email or a phone call from Dave Rentschler. I love cutting up with Kevin Schlangen and from Dakota County. We really mix it up and have a little competitive interaction with one another from time to time. And you've been to our Flagfoot event, so you know how competitive we are with one another, and so it's all good-hearted, but it's a family, and we really just enjoy the time we can solve each other's problems, or we can solve nothing. But it's the camaraderie and the fellowship and the time spent. You realize that you're not alone with the problems that you're facing, and oftentimes you stumble across a solution where somebody else has already experienced the problem you're facing now. It's a great career, a great profession, it's a great environment. And GFX certainly brings us all together and gives us a venue that we can develop professionally on an individual level. We can help establish new horizons for our organizations and our fleet staff. And the opportunities for success are all around us. And this week has been a good week for us being recognized, but there were many years that we weren't. And so, it gives you a target, gives you a goal, gives you something to strive for. And I think that's the power of GFX and the fleet industry as a whole.
I love that. Well, Tim, thank you so much for joining us, and we're so happy to have you here.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.